And welcome to the QEM Heroes webinar series. I'm Christine Wood, and I serve as the Assistant Program Director for the Heroes Fellows Program at QEM. For more than 30 years, QEM has been a national catalyst for STEM education transformation and research capacity building. Currently, the QEM network serves nearly 900 colleges and universities and reaches more than 8,000 individuals nationwide. This webinar is part of the HEROES initiative. The HEROES program brings together researchers with experience in the federal government to lend their expertise and support to the STEM research and education communities. Our fellows are here to provide tools and tips for navigating the funding landscape, developing STEM programs and partnerships, and improving talent retention in in-demand fields. We hope this series promotes engagement with our HEROES fellows and provides valuable resources to our participants. During the webinar, we invite you to use the Q&A tool to ask questions, and we'll address questions at the end of the presentation. The webinar recordings and slides will be available in the QEM Resource Hub. By attending this webinar, you will be added to the QEM network and granted access to the Resource Hub. And I'm so proud to introduce our fellows today. Ken Wright retired from NASA after 40 years of federal service, where he most recently served as a senior policy advisor in the Office of Technology, Policy, and Strategy. Other roles during his career included director of the NASA Inventions and Contributions Board, executive director for the Science and Technology Partnerships Forum, and agency lead for innovation. Ken also served 2 years in the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, where he led the National Science and Technology Council and lab to market activities. Career highlights include receiving NASA's Outstanding Leadership and Exceptional Services Medal and being inducted into the Academy of Distinguished Alumni for Virginia Tech College of Industrial and Systems Engineering. Dr. Quincy Brown is the Principal of Futures and Innovation, leading education and workforce strategic development and advising. With over 25 years of experience in engineering and technology, she specializes in STEM education and workforce development. Most recently, Quincy served as the Director of Space, STEM, and Workforce Policy in the White House National Space Council. Her career includes senior policy roles across 2 presidencies in the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, Senior Director for Innovation Research at AnitaB.org, Program Director for STEM Education Research at the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and Computer Science Professor at Bowie State University. Quincy holds a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and master's and doctoral degrees in computer science. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the floor over to our presenters.
Thank you, Christine. Let's see, I'm gonna put this in. I will share my screen so we have the slides. Let me know if that's okay. Good. All right. So, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you for that great introduction, Christine. Ken and I are here to talk about work-based learning and its benefits to students and colleges and universities.
And yeah, before we get right into the activity, we just want to give you a little bit about our agenda today. Quincy's going to start off with a conversation about what is work-based learning, provide some top-level information on that. We'll talk about some types of work-based learning, also WBL. If you see that, that's work-based learning. We just don't want to say it every time. And then I'll give some specific examples, both from NASA, with my experience with NASA, as well as with the private sector and other entities that NASA partners with to utilize for work-based learning opportunities. And then we'll close out with some information on building relationships and next steps and how we can really use work-based learning as part of your overall strategy. Before we kick into that, let's just do a quick poll so we can see who's on the call today. If you could, just fill in your information, just give us a better idea of where we want to go in terms of really being able to drill down based on who we have on in the webinar. Christine, just let us know once we have enough folks there. We'll go from there.
I'll give folks a few seconds to answer the poll. Okay, I'm going to share results.
That looks good. I think that really fits well with what we have ready to present to you today. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Dr. Brown, and she's going to give you that background information.
Thank you. So, as I mentioned, we're here to talk about work-based learning today, and just to give like a kind of high-level general description or definition of it, it's really about experiences that connect classroom instruction with real-world experience. And so the idea with using work-based learning is that learners can develop industry-specific skills and increase and have a greater sense of career awareness. Typically, these involve a partnership, some kind of relationship, which we'll talk about at the end, between the industry and the schools, the colleges, universities, or community colleges. And there's many types of work-based learning opportunities. We'll cover most of these today that include apprenticeships, internships, mentoring, fellowships, co-ops, and research experiences. So first, I want to go a little bit into apprenticeships and what something that's called pre-apprenticeships. So pre-apprenticeships, yeah, are these are generally shorter term. Sometimes these can occur for learners as early as high school. There in those programs, there's a focus on foundational skills, and they are often designed to be preparation for a learner entering a registered apprenticeship program. These are often unpaid, again, part because of their duration and their focus on foundational skills, but they're often unpaid. And then there are apprenticeships, and I have in parentheses registered. We'll talk about what it means for it to be registered on the next slide. But these tend to be longer term. Apprenticeship programs typically are around 18 to 24 months. They're often paid. And if they're not paid, then the student would receive course credit. For being part of the apprenticeship program. And they are designed to lead to a nationally recognized credential. So unlike a pre-apprenticeship, you're not necessarily earning a credential. You may not get credit. You may not get paid. It's really like prep to go into an apprenticeship. And so we talk about, quality, right? How do you know if a program is of quality? The United States Department of Labor Employment and Training Administration, so ETA, has published a rule that describes quality for pre-apprenticeship programs. And so I've included the link there. You can go and see the rule is still active. However, the website is a little wonky right now, so you may not be able to get to the details, but the rule is still active. There's another organization called Jobs for the Future, which we most commonly refer to them as JFF. They have a framework for high quality pre-apprenticeship programs. And that includes ensuring that there is transparent entry and success requirements so that people who are starting these programs understand, what it is to get in and how to be successful, that there's alignment, right? What the skills that they're being taught are those that are valued and sought after by employers, and high quality apprenticeship programs, as these programs often are designed to lead you to an apprenticeship program. You want to be sure that what you're learning and what you're doing is going to be, put you on the path that there's alignment. It also will culminate in one or more industry recognized credential, and that you are developing the skills through actual hands-on exercises and activities, not just reading something or hearing someone talk about an activity or a topic. And then it offers a series of wraparound supports. So again, beyond just the skill that you might be focusing on, there's career exploration, there's other academic wraparound supports that a learner might need while participating in a pre-apprenticeship program, and that there's a path, right? There's a way in which someone could, if they want to, transition into a registered apprenticeship or another high quality apprenticeship program. The ETA has a website that's subpart of apprenticeship.gov that has an overview of pre-apprenticeship programs. There is a way for you to, if you're interested in starting one or learning, how your institution or organization can be part of one, you can find a partner to work with. And then there's a part for learners called Career One Stop that's funded by DOL, where learners can go and learn about different pathways, different occupations, and that's called Get My Future. The U.S. Department of Labor has a website, apprenticeship.gov. They have an extensive process by which apprenticeships get registered. So we talk about quality apprenticeships. And so there is a way in which intermediaries or entities can register their apprenticeship, and they keep a directory of all of the registered apprenticeships that are available in the United States. I'll also give a shout out that Registered Apprenticeship Week is coming up in a couple of weeks later this month, starting on the 26th. So there'll be a lot of, for those of you in that circle, a lot of activity and energy and information and stories coming out about the value of apprentices and participating in apprenticeship programs. On the website, I've got an image there from the snapshot where you can actually go and browse by industry. And so, again, we're here to talk about STEM, but there are also apprentices in healthcare, hospitality, financial services. So in all sorts of industries, there are apprenticeships that are available. And you can go to the website there to explore more and learn about and see what specific opportunities there are. There's a part of the website for employers. Again, if you're interested in thinking about how do you start an apprenticeship program, how do you host an apprentice, if you are a job seeker or your students might be job seekers, they can learn about career advice, again, how they navigate this system. And then if they're actually looking for a registered apprenticeship, they can go to the site there, browse by industry or geography or occupation, and see what there is available. There's also public service apprenticeships. And so those are largely the first part I showed you talked about was like private sector, but federal departments and agencies also have, some of them do have apprenticeship programs. And so like NASA is one, but USDA, DOD, Department of Energy, Interior, Justice, Labor, Treasury, Transportation, and the VA all have programs to support apprentices. And so I kind of have a snapshot there of what a listing looked like for Department of Treasury in the Bureau of Engraving, which is not an area that I would have thought about might have an apprenticeship program, but they do. And they're looking for carpenters, electricians, painters, machinists, I kind of browse the other ones, but they're looking for apprentices in areas like mechanical engineering technicians or electronics engineering technologists. And so there are a whole host of occupations that encompass a range of skills across the federal departments and agencies where they are also apprenticeships are available. Next, I want to talk about internships and co-ops, which are cooperative education programs. They differ slightly, and again, I'm kind of putting them in two buckets, though, and so I'm speaking in generalities, but typically internships occur during the summer, and they tend to be a little bit shorter, like 8 to 12 weeks, and they typically don't delay graduation. They can be paid, they can be unpaid, they could be for credit. And so the specifics of a particular program will vary, but that's generally kind of the shape and the contours of an internship. A co-op, on the other hand, they often occur during the academic year. And so I remember when I was an undergraduate, I did 3 semesters as a co-op student, and I completed a co-op one during the summer, one during the fall, and one during the spring. So alternating semesters. They tend to be longer than an internship. And so again, depending on the length of your semester or a segment of your school calendar, if you're on quarters or semesters, right, they could be a little bit longer than a typical internship. And they may delay graduation because some of the time or a semester that you would otherwise spend in taking courses, you're now spending doing your co-op. And typically these are paid because of the longer duration. And sometimes you do get credit depending on the program that you're in, but most often they're paid. I think one of the ways I included a link here from Indeed about the differences between co-ops and internships. If you're interested, there's a link you can read more. But one of the great ways to find co-ops is on Indeed. These are mostly in the private sector. You can just type the word co-op, you can type a location, or you can, kind of do some searching around there, and it'll pull up all of the co-ops, a large number of co-ops in the private sector that are available. You can do something similar for internships, and search for internships that way. There are a lot of internships that are available in the private sector for students. And I'll add for the federal sector, there is a jobs portal called usajobs.gov, which, if any of you have had to navigate that, is a beast. But they've created in recent years a student section that is a lot easier and for students, for anyone, but this one is designed for students to navigate. And so there in the student section, you can find internships and other opportunities just for students. And again, you can do keyword searches. You can search by agency, discipline. You can search by geography and find different opportunities that are available just for students. Next, I want to cover, I would be remiss if I didn't mention research experiences. What I'll talk about is primarily for undergraduates, though there are obviously research experiences for graduate students as well. And typically these occur, again, during the summer. And they're hosted by universities, but also industry. There are a good number of industry research experiences that are available, research opportunities for students that are available. Again, during the summer, they tend to be a little bit shorter, 10 to 12 weeks or so, and they're most often paid. And so you can also check Indeed, or some of the professional societies are good sources for finding some of these research experiences for students. One of the places that I generally send students to, and faculty, if they're unaware, is to the NSF REU site. So the National Science Foundation funds and supports a large number of research experiences for undergraduates. And these are great on both sides, right? So faculty, if you have an existing NSF award, can generally often apply for a supplement. So if you have an award and you think, okay, I would like to support one or two students during the summer, you can check in with your program officer and receive, probably there's some process you would go through to receive an additional supplement to your current award to fund students. And if you are in a position where you think, hey, I'd love to have what they call an RU site. I believe these are, kind of like a cohort, like a larger cohort of students where you can fund up to 10 students. And sometimes it could be multiple faculty, right, in a department or on a campus can be part of an REU site. And then you can apply for funding to support that number of students. The NSF REU site, I should say, that covers all of those research areas that are listed there. And the site is really great because they have information for students, information for faculty. And the part about that I really appreciate is that it has a directory of all of the REU sites. And so students can go, or you can go and look, and you can search by geography, you can search by academic discipline, you can search by, there's keyword search, different ways you can search that and see what are all of the opportunities that are available that are funded through this NSF REU program. Often students receive, I forgot what the stipend level is around now, but it's several $1,000s over the course of the summer. And some of them include housing or support and assistance for housing and transportation. So it does vary a little bit, based on the specific location and what they're offering, but it is a great opportunity for students to kind of explore outside of the bounds and have these research experiences. Even though they're called our research experiences for undergraduates, I also think this is a great way for graduate students to get a sense of like who all is doing what in a particular area, because you might be able to go and again search for geography or search for your discipline or your research area and see who else is doing this work. There's generally a contact information so you can see what faculty are doing work, and sometimes they may have support outside of obviously this REU program, but they may have support or be open to hosting you as a graduate student. So though it's kind of tailored towards undergraduates, I think it's also a great resource to kind of learn about the broader landscape for graduate students. And the last piece I want to cover is around fellowships. So this word is a little loaded. These tend to focus on professional development, and there are fellowships that exist in university and industry. Though I have here that they tend to be shorter, again, similar like 10 to 12 weeks or so, and they generally come with a stipend. You'll also see the word fellowships associated with other types of programs. So you can be a postdoctoral fellow, right? Those sometimes are, much longer, right? A year, multi-year, or a semester. Again, those tend to come with stipends, but I think an implied part around mentorship and professional development that's slightly different than, say, an internship or a fellowship, or a co-op, right? Where a fellowship is a little bit about more developing you professionally in addition to the work or the disciplinary work that you would do. And so Ken will also talk about fellowships when he does his part. And over to Ken.
Thanks, Quincy. As mentioned earlier by Christine, I've worked at NASA for almost 40 years, and so got a lot of experience working with various students and faculty over the years, and I really have a lot of energy and passion around that. And as a member of the Office of Technology Policy and Strategy, we weren't just talking about the strategy in terms of the technology piece, but also the strategy in terms of the workforce for NASA. So I think that transitions nicely into what we want to talk to you about today. But before we get started, we got to recognize Artemis 2 crew. Congratulations for that launch and Godspeed to them as they go on their 10-day mission around the moon. And one of the things that comes out of this, actually, you see Quincy and I both had a chance to participate with several student activities with Victor Glover, who's the pilot on the mission. But we had an opportunity also to work with multiple centers. Thousands of people, thousands of students have actually contributed to Artemis 2. And they are part of this mission. Once you become part of anything with NASA, you're part of the NASA family. So a lot of pride with the students as well. We also have 10 centers across the U.S., 6 mission directorates. And even though this particular one is in human space, there are lots of contributions from all of the folks in the 6 mission directorates, including the STEM engagement, which is actually part of mission support. We'll talk about the STEM engagement office, which is specializes in engaging with the students and faculty for various NASA opportunities. And we think of NASA, a lot of times we just think of, science and math, but there are also a lot of business opportunities as well because NASA has contracts, as we all know, with a lot of different vendors. And we really need folks with expertise in those contracts as part of the opportunities that's also provided as we talk through these work-based learning opportunities. Just want to give you a little bit of top level from the Office of STEM Engagement in terms of some of the things that recently they kind of changed in terms of their philosophy. This data actually is from 2025. You can see on the left that there's a lot of engagement primarily with the elementary school students, then a little bit less for middle school, and then a little less for high school, undergraduate, kind of diminishes. And on the right, you can kind of see correlation between the educators reaching to those different levels as well. But there is going to be a change in 2026, or has been a change, which is as denoted on the next slide, which focuses on high school, college, and post-doctorate type opportunities, because they really want to really focus on the learning and preparation portion of the STEM continuum. The Inspire piece, which inspires the K through 12, kind of students to say, hey, we're excited about space, that's going to be more assigned to the mission directorates. And then the STEM engagement office will actually be focusing on high school and college preparation and learning. And then the employment piece, of course, will be once they get a job. So this translates to FY26 really having a STEM engagement portfolio really focused on grades 9 through 12, as well as the higher education. And this includes the grants and awards, internships and student work experiences, challenges and competitions. When we think about NASA, a lot of times there are things out there that we all aren't even aware of that you can have your students participate in or students can participate on their own. And it gives them a leg up when you talk about applying for work-based opportunities. What's going to set those students apart is participating in things beyond just what they normally do at school. So these challenges and competitions are a great way for faculty at the colleges and universities to kind of encourage their students to really participate in these opportunities so that they can have that leg up when it comes down to putting in their resume for opportunities. I think that's good on this one, Chris. This is another great site that NASA, we put these links throughout the presentation, which will be provided to you. And this one really shows the learning opportunities from high school all the way to postdoctoral, because even continuing opportunities after postdoctoral opportunities. So not looking to go into a lot of details here, just wanted to let you know that this is a resource that you can go to and search on, depending what level you're looking for, even things for faculty. In the continuing opportunities portion of this site, you can see training and opportunities for faculty to learn more about what NASA's missions are, the challenges that they're facing, and those types of things can be helpful as you're putting together your strategy for what are we going to target in terms of some of the NASA missions, NASA challenges that are most aligned with the work that we're doing in our college and university. So now to give you some specifics on some of the work-based learning opportunities at NASA, we'll start on the left talking about NASA internships. This particular portion of the work-based learning is managed by the Office of STEM Engagement, and these are primarily undergraduate, and these are short-term opportunities. So if you apply this summer, you get an internship, then that's only for 1 year. That you don't have an opportunity necessarily to come back next year because you're focusing on a specific 1 year opportunity. There are 3 sessions per year. Summer is about 10 weeks, fall and spring are 15 weeks. And right now, we're already at the fall application deadline. So if you were looking for this summer, too late. Be ready for next summer. But you can be ready for the fall semester if you have, because that deadline is May 22nd for fall applications for fall internships. And you can apply through the NASA STEM Gateway. Got the link there. And once you go through the STEM Gateway, you actually register with your information. And you can have access to a lot of different webinars available for faculty as well. And there's actually one coming up on May 7th, which is a webinar about NASA internships in general. Lots of good information. But you can also interact with folks from the STEM community at NASA to ask questions and get more information. The second program we're going to talk about is the Pathways program. This is managed by the Office of Human Capital Management because these are actually civil servant positions. So you apply through USA Jobs, and we know that's a little wieldy, but Quincy mentioned that those are potentially some student opportunities. They're kind of separate. But these are civil servant positions, so you actually accrue federal service during the time you're working at NASA. And these are recurring, where you basically, these are long-term developmental type programs. So once you're in this program, you continue through graduation. And there are lots of opportunities for post-graduation employment that come from this. And that's why it's managed by Human Capital Management. Then the last opportunity segment that we want to talk about is the postdoctoral fellowship program. This is basically where early career portion of this is where you've graduated within 5 years of your doctoral degree. Then they have the senior scientist portion, where it's more than 5 years from your doctoral degree. And also, you engage in these ongoing research projects for up to 3 years. The deadlines kind of rotate through March 1st, July 1st, and November 1st. And you apply through the site there that's recognized. So, kind of different opportunities depending on where you are in your career. Before we leave NASA, I just want to talk a little bit about the Space Grant Consortium. This was actually founded in 1989 as the National Space Grant College and Fellowship Project. They shortened it to Space Grant Consortium, which is actually 52 consortia from around the country. It's actually in all the 50 states plus District of Columbia and Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, where these consortia fund fellowships and scholarships for students pursuing careers in science, mathematics, engineering, and technology, or STEM, of course. And so this also has curriculum enhancement for faculty development as well. So faculty, if you want to learn more about what we're doing at NASA, this is a great opportunity as well to see what your state has in terms of curriculum development and really, again, coordinating that with your strategy for your college or university and helping your students really feel like what are the best opportunities for them based on some of the strategies that you develop. Next slide, please. And these are just some of the NASA points of contact. You see you got a space grant point of contact there, the National Community College Engagement. This is something that NASA is really focusing on more in 2026. But previously, it hadn't had this focus area in terms of community colleges. But now that NASA has actually allocated Dr. Amira Flores as the specialist that's going to work with community colleges from around the country to help them engage with NASA. So community college folks, This is especially beneficial for you kind of getting early in the game because they're still developing their policy. I was talking to the Deputy Associate Administrator for STEM engagement, and they said they need the colleges and universities to help them figure out this new strategy and how they can engage more effectively. So this is a perfect opportunity to kind of get in the front of the line and have some really good dialogue with NASA on these. Next slide, please. So one of the partners that NASA works with is the National Gym Consortium. It's actually a nonprofit organization that specializes in fellowships for students pursuing their master's and PhDs. And NASA really felt like there was a lot of synergy with what the gym opportunities were and what their mission was, and what NASA was looking to do in terms of their workforce and development programs for work-based opportunities. So to give you a little bit about GEM, they were founded in 1976 at the University of Notre Dame. They really recruit these high-quality students pursuing their master's and doctoral degrees in applied science and engineering. And they actually take the time to help match the student skills to the needs of the GEM employers. And over the years, they've had over 5,000 graduates with advanced degrees. You can see their website there. So when we talk about the GEM Consortium, what is that? It's actually a mixture of government agencies. We'll talk about some of the specific ones involved there that provide work-based learning opportunities for students, and they provide the student stipend. Industry partners also provide work-based learning and student stipends. And then the colleges and universities, they cover the cost of the graduate school tuition for the students that have been selected for GEM. And they all come together to really have a win-win situation for all parties involved. So this is kind of just a collage that shows some of the partners that are working with, that are part of the GEM Consortium. You can see, of course, NASA there and some of the other national labs, but it's also industry partners, Exxon, 3M, throughout the country. So lots of great opportunities for students from your colleges and universities to get connected to these opportunities from major corporations, as well as labs and various federal entities as well. So really just a quality organization that's been running for a while. And how does this really work? The GEM Fellows, typically we have over 2,200, and I say we because I'm actually on the board of GEM. I have to disclose that. It is a we when I'm talking about GEM. I was actually the one who introduced GEM to NASA, and NASA said, hey, this sounds great. Let's jump on board. So I actually had them from several sides. But had over 2,200 applicants a year, and they're screened by GEM to kind of figure out what are the best students that really match to the opportunities that are out there from our employers. The average GPA is over 3.5, and typically over 80% of the students accept full-time offers from the sponsoring employers. And the GEM Fellowships, as previously mentioned, has over 5,000 successful GEM Fellows since 1976. And this kind of gives you a timeline because it's important to know when to apply and those type of things. So in July, the GEM applications from the students is opened up. And then in November, the employers actually come together to judge the students. So you get all these applications, representatives from the various employers come together to review those students and really select the best ones based on the opportunities that are out there from the GEM employers. And then by December, the fellow selection begins. And this is actually the process of connecting the employers with the different fellows who are actually available. One of the things that GEM does have during the application process is that if they're new fellows, then they need to be applied to 3 master's or PhD programs as part of the process. So it's just, again, making sure that they have several different opportunities when they apply for these programs. And then the university selection begins in April, where the students have to down select and say, okay, of the 3 that I applied for, this is the university that I've been selected to and actually will be working with as part of the GEM program. And then the selection actually ends in May. So about this time of year, we've already worked through a lot of that process, and the selection has ended in the May time frame, and internships begin in June. And typically those are just summer assignments. And before we get off of GEM, I just had to give an example of Asad Abdul Hamid, who actually worked with me at NASA headquarters, received his PhD in May of 2025. And this was a great example of how Jim was really beneficial, not just to NASA and the student, but also to the college and university. At NASA, he worked on this orbital debris remediation. This is basically getting rid of a lot of the space junk out there, different strategies to get rid of the small things that have been left in space to make it cleaner up in our, especially low Earth orbit. But this aligned with Assad's research that he was doing at Stevens Institute as well. So this was one of those situations where talking to his professor, he said, hey, I've got this opportunity at NASA through Jim. And professor said, that sounds great. And actually the work he did at NASA really helped improve the professor's NASA research opportunities in space and earth science, or Rose's proposal that was submitted by his professor at Stevens. The proposal was subsequently funded by NASA, and Assad was actually the lead author on a journal article that was published in Spacecraft and Rockets and several other entities. So, and the professor actually got benefits from this even after Assad graduated, because he still has some actual work that's following up from that. So again, this is one of those situations where the faculty also benefited from the actual work that was done through the work-based learning opportunity through GEM. And this is the type of thing I think that we want to encourage folks to do. When you're talking about work-based opportunities for students, don't just think about the student and what they can benefit from, but look at the overall strategy and how that fits in. And I think that's kind of transition to my next slide. Oh, not this slide, the slide after this one. But this one is talking about, if you aren't a GEM member, how does your university become a GEM member? Typically, it's by invitation of the board of directors. As I mentioned earlier, I'm on the board. So if you're interested, let me know. We can give you a little bit of tips on how to do that. But consideration is given to the strength of the school's graduate programs, really combined with their overall interest of the university to really look at education for underrepresented groups, underrepresented domestic STEM students. So we are typically talking about U.S. citizens. And usually each of the university appoints a board representative where you are the representative to GEM from your particular university. And GEM brings the collective group together with the employers. So this is an opportunity, again, to have some interaction and communication with a lot of industry partners, with federal partners. These representatives from the universities come together once a year with the board and other members of the GEM community to have conversations about strategic ways that we can really benefit both themselves as well as the graduate students. And you can see there the proposals are submitted through the university application. All right, key takeaways. I think I've kind of said this, but I just want to reemphasize the work-based learning should be a key component of your organizational strategy, not just a hit or miss thing, students doing it on their own, but actually taking time to think about how do these opportunities align with the strategies for your college or university, and really looking to identify those opportunities that link to that strategy and really providing the best opportunities, because the students will get great experience. But the student network, it really provides colleges and universities valuable insights and feedback on what the employers are looking for. That should also be part of your program and say, hey, this is area that see is going to be hot in the next few years based on the employer insights that are gained from the students. So use those students to provide that feedback that can be helpful as you're setting up curriculum and other things to help shape your programs in the future. As I mentioned, NASA is looking to increase the interaction with employers, so it's a perfect opportunity for that. I'll be around to talk about that more if you like more information. And we're looking for those win-win opportunities where you're really looking to build the relationships and trust, because anytime you put a proposal in, if somebody hadn't heard of you, it's going to be really difficult for them to put things out there. But if you've already built up relationships, demonstrate the value of your college or university or community college, whoever it is, to the funding organization. And these opportunities are built through work-based learning opportunities, other things that could be part of that activity. And just to give a little plug, we'll actually be talking next Thursday about partnerships, which is another key aspect of this organizational strategy. Quincy and I will actually be taking it to another level, looking at the partnerships piece, which is kind of accompanies the work-based learning.
And I'll add that, though the examples that Ken has described were focused on NASA, there are parallels across the federal departments and agencies. And so there are research labs, and as well as the FFRDCs, the federally funded research and development centers, which are kind of like quasi-governmental, but there's a lot of research that goes on there, and they host student interns. And again, you can find a lot of those by searching the usajobs.gov or Indeed or some of the other sites that were mentioned, where there are opportunities and ways in which students can gain the experiences, but you also then can develop a partnership, right, and kind of strengthen the pathway between your lab or your institution and that public or private sector entity.
Oh, that's a great point, Quincy. But everybody knows, NASA is the best place in federal government to work for 100 years now. So, if you're going to go, you just go to NASA.
No, yes, and on to the next slide.
Just
Uh,
all right. This is our
so
information
yeah,
and yeah, all the great QR codes for the QEM events page, which gives you all the different events coming up with our other folks in our cohort, the Heroes webpage, and webinar feedback. Please give us feedback. We want to make these better in the future and always be, let us know if there are other topics that you think would be great for us to include in future conversations, because we want to make these topics really relevant and most impactful to all of the community.
thank you. Ken, there's a question in the chat about whether there's a financial obligation for GEM, if there's a financial obligation on the university's part. I know you mentioned kind of what um, the university, you said supports their tuition, but if you want to say more about the university requirements.
Yes, the university requirement is just to provide the tuition for these great students. So that is their contribution. I can't remember if there's any small fee, but they tried to make it minimal in terms of impactful for the colleges and universities. There are a lot of already HBCUs and other MSIs as part of the GEM consortium. So first thing is to check to make sure that you might not already be a member, because some folks have memberships that they didn't even know about, and it's just a matter of kind of turning it back on. So again, be glad to connect you with the folks who can give you more details on that. But basically covering the cost of the graduate school tuition during the time that the student is in the GEM program from the university perspective.
And then here again, as the Christine did put the link in the chat there to evaluate the webinar, but there are QR codes where you can learn more about the Heroes program. Ken mentioned that next week he and I will be doing a webinar on partnerships, but there are webinars that happen several times during the week, and there's a event page there for QEM, and then the webinar feedback form.
Yeah,
Wow,
and
thank
we'll
you
make sure
so
we
much.
get the
Sorry,
slides
Ken.
to you. Oh no, I said we'll make sure we get the slides to Christina, who'll post them on the site, because there are lots of good links, and like I said, the links to all of the different information are there. And if you have any questions about specific ones, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Quincy.
Thanks for attending today, and thanks for this incredibly resourceful presentation. We invite folks in the audience to ask questions. You can raise your hand to come off mute, put something in the Q&A box, or use the chat. We have plenty of time for discussion and conversation.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen then.
So I'm going to ask a question. It's in line with the GEM information. So I saw on the chart that, different responsibilities, but what I did not see, and I might have missed it, maybe you said it, when the student is on an internship and has to go a physical location, does the industry partner cover their living and that type of thing?
Yeah, typically not. That's, kind of part of, they have to take it out of their stipend. They get a pretty good stipend. I think it was 20 some thousand.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more than some of the others. So they do typically have enough to cover housing as well,
Okay.
if they
Thank you.
have to. A lot of them try to do it. Like my particular person lived in New Jersey. And so he was able to come in a couple of times a week, and we covered the travel for his time while he was there. So it wasn't like a
Mm,
permanent change, but we could come in and have him stay for a few days for meetings and go back. So a lot of flexibility depending on the employer of how they make that so the student can keep as much of the funding that they get as possible.
Thank you.
We've got some raised hands in the queue. Dr. Greg Davis, I'm going to allow you to come off mute.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you, Quincy and Ken. My question is about apprenticeships. I know a thing or two about them. I don't feel like I'm at all an expert, but I thought of them always as an alternative to a student going to college, and I want to understand how you see that being part of a higher education experience.
So typically, um, apprenticeships are the ones that I'm referring to, let's put it that way. The ones that I'm referring to are complementary to a student going to college. And when I say college, I'm speaking post-secondary broadly, not necessarily to a four-year degree granting institution, but a lot of the technical and community colleges have apprenticeship programs. And so these are because part of the purpose is for them to get the hands-on work-based experience while they are that complements right and aligns with what they're learning in the classroom. There's got to be the classroom component, right? And so and then at the end of the apprenticeship period, they will have earned a nationally recognized credential. So this would be a certification or an AA, associate's degree, or depending on what the credential is, but they should receive a credential at the end, as well as in all things are going the way they should, and offered a transition into full-time employment. But there are some, I know, like in the previous administration, there was a big push for apprenticeships for teachers, right? So there are some fields. That's the first thing that comes to mind that do, ultimately do require a four-year degree where there are looking at using the apprenticeship model. But that's the one that comes to mind for that.
And one other piece too, I know when I think of apprenticeships, my parents and I used to live down in Hampton area, Hampton, Virginia, and Newport News Shipbuilding is known for their apprenticeship program. So a lot of the private industry has their apprenticeship programs too that you could look at because they take everything from the apprenticeship training to the workplace and even have where they're on campus for on living during the apprenticeship. And so it's a really great program that really focuses on the craft, a lot of welding and those types of things. But they actually have it more like a college experience, even though it is an apprenticeship. They have a football team, but all that type of thing. I've been always really impressed with the Newport News Shipbuilding Apprenticeship Program, one of the best in the nation.
Yeah, but that's still like, right, there's a classroom component to
Yeah.
that, right? That is complemented by the hands-on work experience.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's part of why I mentioned too, like registered, right? And like that word registered and the word quality, right? There are all sorts of programs out there. And so there's trying the effort around them being registered, implies that there's certain criteria that they've met that students, learners know, okay, if I enter this, here's what I can expect, and it's clear and transparent.
And Dr. Erickson, I'm going to allow you to speak and come off mute.
Yes, hey, how are you doing? Both of you, great presentation, very informative. I had a question to Ken. With your discussions with the education folk over at NASA, was there any discussion as to how the internships the numbers were increasing or decreasing? Um, I think it's been harder and harder for students to get employed for the internships, and particularly in the summer.
Yeah, great point, April. In fact, that's one of the reasons I think that they kind of shifted some of the focus in 26 because they were using a lot of the resources for the K through 12. And I think they're going to try to repurpose those because NASA turned away thousands and thousands of students because of the limited number of opportunities that were there. So I think they're trying to shift some of those to provide more opportunities. They're still kind of working through that in terms of just getting their budgets but I think that is part of the plan is to ultimately have more resources for the internships provide those work-based experiences and a little bit less focus from STEM engagement on the K through 12 so they can kind of repurpose that budget. Still won't be able to as you can imagine, handle all the students, but there will be hopefully an increase that we'll see in this year and next year as we're really looking to redevelop their budgets. And that's
Yeah,
one of the reasons.
Ken, since
Oh,
you have their ear, it would be great to also suggest that they figure out ways how to offload the personnel that are being the mentors because typically they don't have a real release time to really support a mentee well. And so if there's ways to provide WBS charge numbers to support those efforts for the federal worker, that I think that would also solidify that you get really great experiences and mentors are dedicated to really supporting a student.
That's
Just overall, um, the notion of completing a work-based learning experience, so an internship, a co-op, for students is becoming more important. And the expectation that students to be competitive will graduate with, one, two or three experiences, I think is becoming a bit more of what the expectation is from industry or from those who are hiring them. And so as April, you mentioned, right, like lots of students are getting turned away or having to apply for 5, 10, 15, 20 opportunities in order to just land one, right? And that's just one time. So I think this issue is important, and I think being able to provide, I don't I'm pretty sure I'm thinking now in hindsight I didn't say this, but being able to provide students with opportunities to do work-based learning happen outside of the ones that we talked about. So you can also do things like your capstone courses, right? You can work with industry to bring some of those hands-on work-based experiences and projects into your classrooms or into your labs so that students have something to write about in their applications, in their grad school applications, or in other, internship or co-op experience applications that they've done and can demonstrate that they've done these kinds of things. And so, aside from what we've talked about, there are ways you can do that on campus, in your labs, in your classrooms to provide students with the hands-on real world experiences and opportunities, in addition to going off campus to do those during the summer or during the semester.
I totally agree with you, Quincy. It's experiencing that firsthand right now that students almost have to walk on water to be accepted or to get scholarships or full rides. Things are becoming really tough, and so students have to find experiences all over the place, wherever they can, to really make their resume pop out and show that they're not necessarily aggressive, but very assertive and confident in seeking opportunities. So I think it's really a great list of experiences that you guys have presented today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And one thing I'll just add to that, because y'all got me just thinking about the whole process, and a lot of the internship opportunities are competitive, and we know that's difficult, but there are things as faculty we can do to really help the students be in the best position when they do apply for these internships. Again, looking at things that are publicly available in terms of these competitions and things that will show that the students have a passion for what NASA is trying to do or whatever the entity is. So, not just NASA, but any of the entities are doing. Look for those opportunities that aren't competitive that say encourage the students to participate in those so they will stand out when they put their resume in for that internship or opportunity to show that they actually are not just willing to just do the school work, but also to go beyond their own time to do things that are the rocket competitions or whatever it is, robotics. So really encourage it. And again, I think that should be part of a college or university strategy is to really have that as a coordinated piece with the students.
Well, we still have about 6 minutes to take more questions.
He lost because he is 18.
Got to open mic, Greg.
Well, in the absence of additional questions, I just want to thank our presenters for an incredibly informative talk today and for providing all of the resources and conveying your own experiences as well. Um, Please join us for an upcoming webinar and visit the QEM site for event schedule and to meet your heroes on the Heroes program page and potentially reach out to heroes for resources and idea sharing. Thank you very much for attending today. Wish you a great afternoon.
Thank you all.
Thank you.